And the third core prerequisite, I think the most important prerequisite, it's the one I wrote my first chapter in my book, and it's there for a reason first, is you must take 100% responsibility for your life and for the results you produce. That means you have to give up all blaming, all complaining, all excuse making, and this is not easy to do. It's habitual. Most of us just habitually go there. You know, it's their fault. We look for placing blame somewhere, and so we have to give that up. Most of you know this because many of you have read the book, but we'll just review it really quickly. E plus R equals O was a formula I learned from a therapist when I was living in Los Angeles, and his name was Bob Resnick, wonderful man. And it goes like this: events plus responses equal outcomes. And when you don't get the outcomes you want, what most people do is they blame the event. It's the economy. It's the Japanese. Now it's the Chinese, you know, or the Indians. In other words, we've got all these countries that are coming up that are competing for the goods that we've always taken for granted in the United States. Okay, we blame the world economy. We blame the devaluation of the dollar. You know, we used to have a great situation. I go to Europe now. The euro is not worth, you know, my dollar's not worth a euro. All of a sudden, dinner is like, you know, a third again as expensive. People in Canada come to the United States, you have the same experience. So we want to blame things outside ourselves, our parents, the way we were raised, you know, the corporations of the world, you know, the military, George Bush, Clinton, whoever. If it wasn't for them, things would be better. And the fact is, those things just are the way they are. As my friend John Enright says, the world's just out there worlding. It's just doing what it does. Just is. It's the existential reality of life. And the only power you have is over your response. There are only three responses you have: the thoughts you think, the images you hold in your head, and the behaviors, which include speaking, what you say. That's it. You can't manage anything else. You can't manage others, can't manage time. You can manage yourself in relation to those things: what you say, what you do, what you think, what you imagine. So we're going to focus a lot this week about what are the responses that highly successful people do. We've studied them for years. Okay? We've interviewed them, we've studied them, we've examined them, we know who they are, we know what they do, and they do things differently than people who aren't as successful. And so this is all learnable. There's nothing here that can't be learned by you or anyone else so that you can have exactly what you want or what they have. So some responses produce better outcomes. Now sometimes we don't know what the outcome will be. First time we went to the moon, we didn't know. Okay? We had to just take a risk. So that R can also stand for risk. You're experimenting. You're seeing if it works or not. Okay? One of my favorite examples of this, we were running a couples course. And we had this couple, she was married to a lawyer. And the two of them came together, a woman and a man. And one of the sessions was, I think, a 16-week course, every Thursday night for 4 months. And about the 8th night, she came alone. So, where's your husband? He couldn't make it. Where is he? He's at the law office. He has a brief to prepare. He's got to be in court by tomorrow at 10. He couldn't come. Great. So we just had one of the assistants sit in. Well, what emerged was that she was really unhappy in her relationship. That he would come home, and he would sit in front of the TV. He'd look at the camera, the television screen. He'd also have a newspaper in his hand, cigarette in one hand, drink in the other. So here he is, like surrounded, paper, drink, cigarette, TV. She said, I can't get his attention. Now, if you've read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, you know that men need to go into their cave at the end of a day. But the point was, she wasn't real happy about it. So she was blaming him. And many of the other women in the group chimed in. Yeah, it's those men, they don't understand, they're insensitive, they come home, and we've been alone all day, blah, blah, blah. She was getting a lot of agreement. Well, all that agreement won't change the situation. Okay? Makes you feel a little better, misery enjoys company kind of thing. But the fact was, we said, look, stop. Let's assume for a minute it's not the event called your husband, it's not the TV, it's not the newspaper, it's not the drink, it's not the cigarette. It's you. What could you do to be more interesting than the news? What could you do to be more interesting and engaging than his cigarette and his drink? So instead of blaming him, because that's more interesting, I can't compete with it, maybe you could. What could you do? So we brainstormed 5 or 6 things she could try on as a risk, as an experiment. We didn't know if they're going to work or not. She goes home. She comes back the next week. She's all smiles. So what happened? Oh, man, that stuff worked. What'd you do? He said, well, the first day he came in, he sat down, plunked down, has his newspaper, he's got his drink, he's got his cigarette, he's got the TV blaring. I went in the bedroom, she said, took off all my clothes, glued raisins all over my body. Ran out, jumped in front of the screen and said, hi, I'm a raisin cookie. Are you hungry? She said, I had his attention. Now we said, well, obviously you can't go around naked with raisins on your body all day long. Did you do that all week long? He said, no. The second day he came in, sat down with his newspaper and everything. I went over, I took a pair of scissors, I cut a big hole in his newspaper, stuck my head through and said, hi, honey, welcome home. Now, all of a sudden, she was becoming engaging and playful and risk-taking and experimental and more fun, more interesting, instead of being what? Pissed off, angry, resentful, and who wants to talk to someone who's mad at you? See? So we have choices. Sometimes we don't know what those choices are. We know that what we're doing isn't working, but we don't know what will work. But there are places to turn. Success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. There are books like Men Are From Mars, like Tannenbaum's work on communication, like Harville Hendrix, Getting the Love You Want. I mean, there's all kind of clues out there of things you can do. Okay? Harville Hendrix tells a really cute story. His wife, he wants to share his love with her. And he noticed that whenever she would share love with other people, she'd buy them flowers. So one day he sends her a bunch of flowers, and he comes home expecting, as he used to say, my reward. You know, she'd come up and hug him and kiss him and say, oh, honey, I love you, thank you. And he walked in, nothing. And he said, did you get the flowers? And she said, yeah. He said, well, didn't you like them? Well, not particularly. Well, honey, every time you want to tell people you care about them, you send them flowers. She says, well, that's what they want. He says, well, what do you want? She said, a card. I like cards. So the next day he goes and he buys this big, like 3-foot big Snoopy card, right? I mean, biggest one they had in the store. And he has it delivered to the house. And he comes home and he said, I was expecting my reward. Nothing. And he says, did you get my card? She says, yeah. Well, didn't you like it? He says, no. Well, you said you liked cards. I know, but I don't like the kind that are funny, sarcastic, Snoopy, Charles Schulz. He said, I like the ones that are kind of like they have a piece of art on the front, like the one you buy at a museum store, and inside there might be a really wise saying or something really beautiful and meaningful. So he runs down to the Metropolitan Museum and he buys a Monet, a picture painted by Monet, and he sends it to her, and he comes home and she almost leaps on him. Now, he tried 2 things that didn't work, but he didn't give up. And he even asked her. But he didn't get the full story. But he didn't give up. And then he got the result. And life is going to be like that sometimes. You're going to have to experiment. What works with one child doesn't work with another. They're different. What works with one person doesn't work with another. What works with one client doesn't work with another. But if you take this idea that if there's an event plus your response and you don't get the outcome you want, you just keep changing until you get the outcome. Now sometimes the response means you have to go somewhere else. It may be that the person you have a crush on is never going to fall in love with you. So you quit doing that response, because that's not working. But the point being, if you experiment long enough, you start producing the outcomes you want. And in simple mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4. If you don't like 4, the E is not going to change. You got to change yours, make it 3, 4, 5, until you get what you want. Now, sometimes the E does change. The business world is not what it used to be. The economy is not what it used to be. The world climate. After 9/11 in the United States, people's sense of safety is not what it used to be. Travel is not what it used to be. So you do have to change your R in order to get a response you might have gotten before. So we want to quit blaming the event, start taking responsibility. Remember what the sign on President Truman's desk said? The buck stops here. And it does. It stops with you. So, your point of power, taking responsibility, what is the ability to respond? Responsibility. Keep changing your response to get the outcome you want. Now, just to show you how this works interactively, let me go up to, is it Amber? Kimber. I only saw the B-E-R, M-B-E-R. Kimberly. So if I say to Kimberly, I've been doing these seminars for 30 plus years. I literally have had over 1 million people in rooms like this. And of all the people I've ever met, you have to be the biggest jerk and idiot I've ever encountered in my professional career. Now, if I said that to Kimberly, how many people think that would lift her self-esteem up? How many people think that might lower her self-esteem? Okay, everyone who raised your hand just missed the first pop quiz on E plus R equals O. It is not what Jack says to Kimberly. That's the event. It's Kimberly's response. It's what Kimberly says to Kimberly when Jack stops talking that determines her self-esteem. She might say, my God, he's only known me a day and a half. How'd he figure it out so fast? Right? If she said that, what direction would her self-esteem go? Down. Or she might say, you know, Jack has a perceptual handicap. He does not perceive greatness when he meets it. Which way would her self-esteem go then? Yeah, it would go up or stay the same. She might even say, you know, I'm sitting here in the front row. I'm a very attractive woman. Jack keeps looking over at me. I've hugged him twice on the hug exercises. I got a good sense of humor. I laugh at all his jokes. He had to pick me as the example for this. I stand out for him in a room full of 300 people. For all I know, he has a crush on me. Now, which way would her self-esteem go then? It'd go up. Now, who's in charge of those thoughts? Kimberly is. See, you can pick a higher thought or you can pick a lower thought. It's up to you. Did any of you read the book, The Life of Pi? It's a best-selling book. It's a really cool book. And it's one of the lines in the book is you get to choose what story, what meaning you're going to ascribe to any event. And you can pick a higher story or you can pick a lower story because you're going to make them up either way. One of the most confronting days of my life when I realized I was making up all my own beliefs. And then I had this big confrontation. Oh my God, what's the right belief to make up? Still afraid I was going to do it wrong. And then you realize it's just a big game. You get to make up whatever you want. So if that's the case, why not make up good stuff? Make up stuff that uplifts you. Make up stuff that makes you feel better. Make up stuff that's going to help you get what you want. What beliefs would you need to achieve the goal you say you're setting for yourself? That make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. If I said to you, Cheryl, you have green hair, would that upset you? Why not?
Because I know it's not.
Because I know it's not. Absolutely the right answer. Now, if I said to you, you know, you're one of the most selfish people I've ever met in my life, and if she got upset by that, it wouldn't be because I said it. Because we've already established if I tell her something that she knows is not true, it doesn't upset her. So if someone says something to you that upsets you, it's not them that upset you. That person ruined my day. No, they didn't. It was your belief about yourself that you had before they ever opened their mouth that upset you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It only triggers you if you've already worried about it. If you think maybe I am too selfish, or I am not attractive, or I am too inconsiderate, or whatever, then it gets you. When your 2-year-old tells you you're a bad mommy because you won't let him go to the circus, you don't freak out and go, I must be a bad mommy. You just know that's not the best thing for them to do, and they can tell you that all day long, and you can say, thank you for your perception. It's not who I think I am. Now go to your room, whatever. So the reality is, everything in your life is coming at you like a 2-year-old. You're in charge, but you have to own it. Now, when stuff comes up, when you do get plugged in, as they say, when you do get, what's the word I want, activated by somebody, then notice it. And as we'll teach you on, when Hale's here, teach you a very simple method for releasing it. So you don't resist it, you just release it. Then you go back to center. Okay, so don't give your power away to others. Too many of us do that. You have a question or comment?
Can you just repeat what you said?
Repeat what I said about, we'll skip the microphone. Go ahead.
About releasing and about what you think about what others say to you. Just when you said, did you get it?
The point is that when others say things to you, if they upset you or activate you, it's not what they said that is what is upsetting you. It's the self-doubt about that part of yourself that already lives in you as doubt that is what's creating the upset. Does that make sense? Okay. So the idea is it's not them saying it. Now, see, I teach that nobody can make you feel anything. I can't make you feel anything. I can make it easier for you to make yourself feel something. If I tell you you're an idiot all day long, it's easier for you to go in and agree with that. But my saying that has no meaning other than what you give to it. I know I'm not an idiot. I know I'm not I've had people tell me, you're inconsiderate, you're too concerned with money. Money is one of the last things I care about. And yet the fact is, I do talk about it a lot because a lot of people want to learn how to make more. And I know that that's not a big issue with me. So knowing that, you could say it all day long, it's not going to upset me. I just go, well, I haven't communicated well, or you're projecting something in the past, or you've got an issue there, and I let it go. Okay? But if you tell me something and I get on the bus and I'm thinking about it for the next 6 hours on the way to the airport and home, then I know I've got something in there I need to look at and I've got to work on and release. Catherine Lonning and I met at a writers' conference, and she shared this story with me. She was a gifted writer in her high school class, got a full scholarship to go to college somewhere in Ohio. I don't know if it was Oberlin, someplace like that. And she got there and she registered for this advanced placement writing seminar that was being given that year. And because of her writing ability, her entrance test, the fact that she was editor of the school newspaper, editor of the school yearbook, she had written a play that was produced and all that, they said, okay, we're going to let you go into this class. So she writes her first paper and she gets it back from the professor. And this was a professor who was visiting from Harvard University. And he said to her, you know, what she got was an F on the paper. So she said, see me after class. So she goes to see the professor and says, why'd I get an F? He says, because you can't write. And she said, I've been told for the last 8 years I'm one of the most gifted writers around. I mean, when I was in the 10th grade, I was scoring like, you know, sophomore year in college writing ability. So, I mean, I don't get it. So, well, I'm telling you, I'm a writing professor, and your character development's terrible. You don't describe the scene all that well. The plot's weak, you know. I don't think you can write. I don't think you belong in this seminar. And she said, well, if I get an F in this class, I'll lose my scholarship. He says, well, I'll make a deal with you. If you drop out of the course now. No, that's not what he said. He said, if you promise not to write ever again, meaning, you know, you can write a history paper for school, but if you promise not to think you're a writer, I'll give you a passing grade, like a C+ or a B-, just so you can keep your scholarship. I don't want to rob you of your scholarship, but you have to promise me you're not going to waste the other professor's time here at the university, and you're not going to waste your time pursuing something you have no talent for. She was so afraid of losing her scholarship, she made the deal. Now, 17 years later, she's down in Texas, living out in the boonies, somewhere like near Odessa. And there's some desolate places in Texas. It can get really boring down there. You know, there are towns where people, they get excited when it rains because they can go down to the gas station and watch the oil slicks form, you know, on the cement. It's kind of where she was living. And she said they were making a movie in a town next door, one of those made-for-TV movies, and everyone in town was going over to watch them make the movie because this was really cool. There were actors, directors, and cameras, and big entertainment. And when she went over there, everyone else was hanging out watching them shoot the stuff. She was over where the writers were, because the writers were constantly retooling the script, dialogue doesn't sound right, etc. And she said, or one of the writers said, why are you over here? Why aren't you over there with everyone else? She said, well, I always wanted to be a writer. The guy said, BS. She said, what do you mean BS? She said, well, if you wanted to be a writer, you would have written. She said, no, I was told on good authority I have no talent. He said, whose authority is that? Well, there was a Harvard professor. He says, BS again. He said, it's ridiculous. He said, what does a Harvard professor know about writing for a living? I write for a living. My work sells. I make a living at it. Tell you what, you want to be a writer, you go home, you write a novel, you send it to me, I'll tell you if it's any good or not. So she went home and spent the next 9 months writing a novel. She sent it to him. He liked it so much, he sent it to his editor in New York. She liked it so much, she called her up and said, I'd like to represent you. And I'll tell you what the name of that novel was. Romancing the Stone. Made into a movie. Her next book was Jewel of the Nile. 2, multi-million-dollar movie projects. For 17 years, we lost her talent. She didn't have her talent because she took someone else's opinion of her rather than followed her own passion, followed her own heart. I was reading in, Eric gave me a book yesterday, a present. And I was reading last night, it's a book called Success, Advice for Achieving Your Goals from Remarkably Accomplished People. I'd never seen this book. And there was a story in there by Bon Jovi, and talking about how everybody told them they'd never be any good. They didn't come from LA, they didn't come from New York, and yet they went and they just hung with it and had passion for it. He said only 1 out of a million bands makes it. 1 out of a million. That's probably right. Every kid in the garage somewhere with their rock and roll guitar thinks they're going to be the band. What makes it? Passion, the unwillingness to give up, persistence, hanging in there. So again, don't let anyone else steal your dream. You are responsible. They didn't talk you out of it. You let yourself be talked out of it. Nobody can make you do anything. So there anybody here that thinks someone can make you do something? Yes, who? Looking for the English word? Maybe you can say it and someone else can translate it.
Okay, a neighbor from me was studying music.
You were studying music?
Music in the conservatory
Uh-huh.
of Spain. One teacher in the conservatory said, "You are a bad musician, so it's better for you to make another career or something like this."
Said you were a bad musician, should
Yes.
make another career? Uh-huh.
Yes, so this person quit from the instead of trying to follow him, put it for himself to study by himself as a self-student.
Uh-huh.
So he made around Spain, just looking in the churches, in the paintings in the churches were ancient instruments. So
Instruments in the churches. Mhm.
He decided to reconstruct this instrument and to make music with this reconstruction. So actually, he is the musician, the personal musician of the King of Spain.
Yeah, but what did he make you do?
How?
My question was, is there anyone that can make you do something?
Anyone?
Is there anyone who can force you or make you do anything? I understand your story. It's an interesting story. But my question is there anyone in your life who can force you or make you do anything?
Yeah,
Who?
a teacher.
A teacher. What did they make you do?
This teacher discouraged to me a lot in the school. Was pushing me, and said I never been anything in life.
But what did he make you do?
He made to think other way of making things and trying to make what I'm willing to do rather than following advices from others.
And how did he make you do that?
How?
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with him.
There's the key word. You decided. In other words, he told you something and you went into agreement with him. It was your agreement that made you do it, not him.
Yeah.
See, how many mothers are in the room that have a child? If I had a gun and I put it to your head and said, if you don't shoot your child, I'll shoot you, how many of you would pull the trigger? Nobody. Even with a gun to your head, I can't make you do anything. You always have a choice. The government can't make you pay taxes. They can arrest you and take you to jail. But you choose to pay taxes rather than what? Go to jail. It's a choice. Okay? So nobody can make you do anything. I always love it. The traffic made me late. I'll accept that excuse once. But the second time, it's called, what were you pretending not to remember about the first time? In other words, I've had people used to come to work late in my company 9 days in a row, and I said, it was the traffic on the 405. I said, what time did you leave? They said, 8 o'clock. What time did you get here? 9:15. Now, you've done that 5 days in a row. Might it make sense to leave at 7:45? It's like the awakening to them when you talk to people like this, you know? I had a flat tire. Who's responsible for maintaining your tires? You go out and you see these bald tires, and they blame the tire. You know? Hello? You know? People that say, well, they stole my stereo. Yeah, terrible. Where do you live? In the ghetto? Did you have a lock on the window? No. Do you have a bar on the window? No. Do you have a second lock on the door? No. Where are you pretending not to live? The biggest problem I had with this one is when I was doing my radio interviews for the book, because it's in there number one, and people get really plugged in about it. Well, I got cancer. That's not my fault. Might not be. But I would ask a series of questions. Did you ever smoke? Do you take vitamins? Do you eat organic food? Do you fast on any kind of regular basis to clean out your body? Are your thoughts all positive so that you're not somatizing negative thoughts in your body? Are you doing any kind of holistic health practices? Do you meditate? I don't do any of that stuff. Or might it be that if you did some, your body might not have got cancer? I don't know for sure. Where are you living? Now, some people are living under power lines before any of us knew that that could create cancer. Some people were living like in the movie with Eric Brockovich, where they were living and their water was polluted. Okay? I'm not going to hold them responsible. I didn't know. But as soon as you know, wouldn't you move? Oh, it's inconvenient. West Virginia, where I grew up, coal mining was a major industry. All of a sudden, half the state's out of work. Did you see it coming? Did you notice that there was oil coming in from Saudi Arabia? Yeah. Well, why didn't you get retrained? Why don't you learn a new skill? Oh man, it's hard enough just to go to work. Well, welcome to being on welfare. Point is, we're either creating or allowing everything that happens to us. Creating it or allowing it. Sometimes we didn't create it, but we allow it to continue. People that go back to abusive husbands and get beat up again. People that have their parents abusing them sexually, but they don't tell anybody. Not saying it's easy, not saying it's simple. But again, you're not a total victim in that situation. There are options. Most people don't exercise them. Yes, soon. Question or comment? We'll bring her a mic. Right here.
Hi, my name is Anne.
Anne?
The question for you is, what if someone say that he'll kill himself if we don't do what he wants?
What if someone says they'll kill themselves if they don't do what you want? I'd say
What
fine.
he wants.
I'd say fine. What funeral parlor would you like me to call when you do it?
What if it's your dad?
What?
What if it's your dad?
It's your dad.
I can't do
Who's
it.
responsible for your dad's life? Your dad or you?
But he said the children in his life.
I understand all that.
But then well, the thing is, if I do that, and what if he kill himself, the whole family, larger family, everyone would just look down on me, or just because of that? What
Well,
can
there's
I say?
there's a lot of pressure there, no question. But the point is, who's choosing to agree to the pressure?
It's me, but what if I chose the wrong? What if the wrong decision? If I just let go, and what if he kill himself?
Well, here's the point. You don't know. My experience with most people who threaten to kill themselves if you do or don't do something, like if you don't go to school or don't become a doctor or don't get married or don't move back to Korea or whatever the hell it is what they're saying, the reality is 9 times out of 10 they never do anything. It's just a threat. You know, so you have to, it's your life, you get to choose what you want to do with it, but the point is you have to realize it's your choice. You're choosing to let that run you. And to the level that you do that, the whole family stays in a role where they are being controlled by this guy's threat. And they're controlling other people, including you, with their fear of that happening. So generationally, that could just get passed on forever. You get to have a choice about it. I'm not saying, standing here, that if you don't do or do something, he won't kill himself. It's possible. I rather doubt it based on years of experience doing this work with clients who made choices that people said that and they went back and nothing bad happened. I can't tell you it won't. But I tell you, if he does, it's not your fault. In other words, unless you went up to him and pulled the trigger, it's not your fault. And we've all had people, you've known people where like you're sitting there and you're so mad at your grandmother, you say, I wish she would die. And the next day she died of natural causes. And 10 years later, people are still feeling guilty they killed their grandmother. You know? You're not responsible. My wife's father committed suicide when she was 8. And it was very traumatic for her. And she literally believed, until she met me and did some therapy, that it was her fault. That if only she had loved him more, if only she had been there for him in some way other than she was, he wouldn't have done that. It's not true. Guy was clinically depressed, alcoholic, didn't like his job, and, you know, he's going to do what he's going to do. It's his choice. So you have to be really careful. You are not responsible for other people's choices. It's a hard one to get, and you don't have to get it. But if you want to be free, something you need to consider. Okay, thank you. Let's give her a hymn. Okay. I'm going to take two more. I don't know who yet, but we'll start with Robin, then we need to move on again.
All right, I'm
Just talk. Green.
Robin Love. I need clarification.
Yes.
One of our offices is in our home, so we have people there all the time. There happened to be a window of 2 hours where no one was home, and someone came and robbed us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How am I responsible for that?
The 2 hours that you were gone, was your house unlocked?
No, it was locked. They kicked the door in.
Kicked the door in. Do you have an alarm system on your house?
No.
Where do you live?
In
Winnetka, Illinois?
California.
Winnetka, California. I don't know where that is. Tell me where it is. Where's it located?
It's by
there?
Northridge.
It's by Northridge. Has anyone ever had their house robbed in Winnetka before?
At that point, not that I was aware of.
Not that you were aware of.
Right.
Let me ask you this. Do you have an alarm system on your house now?
No.
Would it make sense?
I have trouble living my life in a jail.
How's that a jail? You walk out of the house, you push 3 buttons. When you walk back in, you push 3 on the outside, and the alarm system goes off.
I understand your point. What we chose to do was to not dwell on it, realize that
That part's smart.
someone else needed it more than we did. We replaced it and went on.
Yeah, I always tell myself that too. They need it more than I did.
Okay.
It's easy to do when you have enough. Here's the deal. You could make a choice. My choice is I would rather not have to deal with the alarm system, whatever feelings that brings up to me about feeling constricted, constrained, imprisoned, whatever. I don't want to live in a prison. And be willing to pay a robbery tax maybe every 20 years as a result of that. And so I have my freedom. Or I could choose to have a little more security and not worry about it. It's your choice. There's no right choice. But you've already had one experience where they came and took something. If it happened again, you'd be hard-pressed to say you were a victim. Do you see what I'm saying? That's all. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thanks. In the blue shirt.
John Keating.
Hi, John.
I'd like to find out how you separate reality from what I'm calling reality would be like, for example, if there's like the war going on in Iraq, and here we are, we're trying to be very positive about how we conduct our life, and we can't do anything about the war because we're not the president or Congress or whatever. But how do we interact with life in the sense of the realities that are out there that are terrible, things that are going on in the world that are terrible, and us wanting to improve our life so that we have a better life? How do you
deal with it now?
I'm sorry?
How do you deal with it now?
Well, my situation is that I know a lot of stuff that goes on internally as to why it goes on, and I can't do anything about that, but it does affect our lives. You mentioned taxes before. If the IRS gets on your case for some reason, you can't control that if they decide to target you. But if, on the other hand, if you're a person that perhaps feels that you're really, not involved with the tax system for some reason, and you choose to be like an Irwin Schiff or something or whatever, then of course you're going to invite those kind of problems perhaps. But on the other hand, maybe you have a real feeling that, or in your reality, you're exempt somehow or whatever. Okay, so reconciling those two things.
Well, for me, I look at the reality as reality. One of my friends says, whenever you want to go to war with reality, reality wins every time. Okay, it's like gravity. You can go up to the top of the mountain and jump off and think you're going to fly. I've never seen anyone do that yet. Doesn't mean it can't happen. I've yet to see it. There's a bunch of people in Fairfield, Iowa, jumping around trying to master that one. I haven't seen any video of that working yet either. But the point is this, that reality's out there, and you can choose to focus on whatever aspect of reality you want. That's, again, your point of focus. You choose what you're aware of. I think you can do things about the war in Iraq if you want to. I don't think they're easy. They're momentous. They would take a long time. Most of us are choosing not to place our life energy there. Okay? Some people are. There are people out there working in peace organizations and the Friends Committee and all that. They're doing that. It doesn't draw me. Vietnam, I was very active in that situation where I thought the war was something I didn't support. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have. There are probably veterans in the room, and I honor them for going over there. But I think that the reality is that for most of us, we're saying, look, what do I want to create? I don't want to create that. Okay? So what do I want to create? Put your focus on that. And the more we create love and harmony and people that are conscious and just, the more we're going to move toward a larger group of people who can elect somebody that perhaps doesn't want to do that. And we may not get there overnight. Big cultural shifts usually take time. 15, 20, 30 years sometimes. So if that's your calling to be a change agent in that arena, you'll do it because you can't not do it. Someone will say, well, how do I know if I'm an artist? If you can't not paint, how do I know I'm a writer? I just can't not write. Okay? How do you know you're a peace activist? I just can't sit by and watch it happen. I have to do something. So I watch very little news because it's all negative. I'm in touch with the world. Usually my staff will tell me, we're at war. Oh, okay. I need to know that.
That's what I mean. If you don't watch the news and if you don't involve yourself in the negativity that's going on in the world, and you're on your own thing, building a business or whatever it is you're doing that for you is positive and uplifting and loving people and so forth, it's kind of like the proverbial ostrich, sticking your head in the sand. You're just ignoring all this other bad stuff, even though it is there. And it's not serving you to know necessarily all about it, but at the same time, how do you live in a world that you ignore everything and still do your thing, so to speak?
Well, most of us do it pretty well.
Okay.
And I think it's okay, quite frankly. There are certain charities I feel very compelled to interact with. Like there's one called Child Abuse Learning Mediation. I was an abused child for a while, so that's dear to my heart. Literacy. I taught as a teacher. I write books. I want people to read. I know it can empower them. Cataract operations in third world countries. The leverage ability, that's amazing. $30 and a guy can go to work again, feed his family. Limbs for children who don't have legs and arms. So there's certain things that I feel compelled to do. And what I would suggest is there are going to be certain things that rise up in you as compelling. And you don't need to feel guilty that other things didn't rise up in you as compelling. And if we focus on one of the things we focus too much on reality, we stay stuck. Reality is created over and over. When people are stuck, they think, I'm stuck. No, you keep creating the same reality over and over again by the thoughts you think. Okay? So, in a sense, you're working to create a world that works for you, your family, your employees, the people that use your products and services or whatever. And that brings more light, love, upliftment, etc. into the world. Okay? And so that's where your energy is. I went to India. I saw a lot of poverty. I was moved to do something about it because I was there. I saw it and it touched me. Okay? I've not been to places where there's utter poverty. They don't touch me, so whatever reason. I can't do everything in the world. So do the things you're drawn to do. Trust your own interests. You know what I'm saying by that? Good. Okay, good. Thank you.